Father, in the name of Yeshua, we come to you, Lord, this day. We thank you, Father, for the day you've given us. We thank you for Passover and the fulfillment, Lord, of Passover with Yeshua, with his death, his burial, his resurrection, Lord. We mark this day as a dual day in the traditions, Lord, that are out here, that come forth, that we mark and understand as the day would have died on the cross under the Hebrew calendar and would have been done on the Gregorian calendars and traditions. It's known as the day he would have rose from the grave. And those dates differ from year to year and at different times, but we thank you for the promise and the fact thereof, Lord, that those things happen. And we thank you that he spent 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, that he redeemed us, that he now has the keys to death and hell, and that he lives forevermore making intercession for us. We certainly need it, and we need his intercession and his help to make the stands that we have to make in this world. We ask you to be with us in our time of fellowship and be with the meal, and we thank you for everybody, Lord, that has provided and has set forth the meal, and for every person present that's here with us to share, Lord, for no person is here by accident or by coincidence. And we share. Amen.
Amen. You need to start your
Whatever you bring, sure you bring the, okay, make it easy that way.
All right.
We are here tonight to celebrate the Passover. The story of Passover begins at the very beginning, when darkness was on the face of the deep, and Jehovah said, "Let there be light," and there was light.
And up at the other table in front of Michelle and Judy, there's a lighter, and I'm going to say the candle blessing.
Judy can take one, and Michelle can take the other.
Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher hitchenu habed bareka v'natnu lanu et Yeshua mishikanu vetzivanu lahot olam. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us by your word and given us Yeshua, our Messiah, and commanded us to be a light unto the world.
I told you should have switched off the child-proof button, Charlie.
Well, according to rabbinic tradition anyway, it has to be a woman.
Yeah.
Who
It
lights the
doesn't
candle.
matter.
Yeah, I almost want to see
Doesn't
what's
matter.
wrong
Oh,
with
it doesn't? Okay.
We don't care.
Just do it. Just do it.
If we can't do that, I'll go get a match. While we're getting-
I think it's broke.
I mean, you push that one in and push that
You
one
push
off.
this one in,
Yeah.
and
Push
this is
that one up.
not clicking.
Go get a match.
All right.
Yeah, it's just not.
Not to work, he was doing okay, it just ain't working.
This isn't working. All right.
It's not operator error.
It's not close to your hand, huh?
This is the story.
I have a little bit.
I'll tell you what, we're getting ready to go get something to eat. So why don't we let everybody get something to eat? And while they're doing that, I'll hunt for a match. And so, just grab your plates. Everything is kind of a face out. Bill, you'll have to help them with the beef.
I'm gonna come in there and cut it.
Jehovah created the earth and every living thing in it. He created male and female humans and placed them in the Garden of Eden. Jehovah told them they could eat the fruit of any tree except for one. But the woman and the man did not eat from the tree, and in that moment sin entered the world. No longer could the man and woman, Adam, as Jehovah called them, walk with him, nor could they live in the perfect garden he had created for them. But Jehovah longed for people to walk with him again. So he began to reveal a plan to reunite the Creator with the created. Many years later, there was a man named Abram, who lived in Ur. Jehovah called Abram to come out of Ur and leave everything behind and dwell in Canaan. Abram did so and had to go to Egypt But Jehovah told Abram he would give him the land of Canaan to him and his descendants forever. And who's going to do the matzah blessing?
Whoever you call
Larry, would you do the matzah blessing?
Okay, maybe we could start passing some matzah around too. Okay, Jehovah empowered Abram to defeat all the pagan kings in the land. It was then that the Melech Tzaddik, the king of righteousness, the priest of Elyon, brought out bread and wine, and blessed the Almighty, and blessed Abram. Thus was the instituted the blessing for the bread and the wine. Okay, let's
Holding up
make
the
sure.
matzah.
Let's make sure everybody has some, Charlie. Okay,
Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu
Melech haolam.
melech haolam hamatzi lechem min haaretz.
Yes.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. And everybody eat matzah. And holding up our wine. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam parei peri hagafen. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us fruit of the vine. Lahan.
Lahain.
Fine.
AJ, would you take the next reading to
So where's his reader?
the next section?
It's still yours, I guess. For a long time, Abraham had no children. Yehovah changed Abraham's name to Abraham and promised that he would be a father to many. At times, Abraham doubted Yehovah's promises, that his descendants would be as numerous as the dust of the earth, but his wife, Sarah, conceived and bore a son, whom he named Yitzchak. The son was to be a father to a great nation. After these things, Yehovah tested Abram. He said to him, Abraham, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Yitzchak, and offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain that I will show you. As Abraham prepared to do as he was told, Yitzchak asked him, Father, I see the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham replied, Yehovah will provide himself the lamb. Abraham built an altar, then bound and prepared to sacrifice his son. At that moment, an angel called out to him, Abraham, do not lay your hand on him, for now I know you are a man who fears Yehovah. Abraham saw a ram with its horns caught in a nearby thorny thicket. This was the substitution Yehovah had provided. Abram offered up the ram instead of his son. Thus was instituted the shadow picture of a male lamb as a substitute offering.
Bill, would you care to take the next section?
Yitzhak later had a son named Yaakov, also called Israel. And Israel had 12 sons. One son was named Joseph, and he was sold as a slave into the land of Egypt. And Yehovah raised him to be Pharaoh's chief steward. Thereafter, when a famine came over the land of Canaan, the rest of Israel's tribe relocated to Egypt. At first, they were given the best land and prospered, but later they became slaves to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They were forced to make bricks and build cities and temples dedicated to the pagan Egyptian gods.
And Gail, would you take our next section?
Many years later, a new Pharaoh was afraid of the people of Israel. He cruelly decreed that all their newborn sons must be killed. One mother hid her son and put him in a basket on the river Nile. An Egyptian princess found the child and named him Moshe. Moshe was raised in Pharaoh's house. When he was a grown man, he killed an Egyptian and fled Egypt, dwelling in Midian as a shepherd.
Ken, can you take the next read?
One day, Moshe saw a burning bush on a mountain. The bush seemed to be on fire, but was not burned up. Moshe went up to see the amazing sight. When he got there, Yehovah called to him, saying, Moshe, Moshe, take your sandals off your feet, because your place you are standing is holy ground. I am Elohim of your father Abraham,
Yitzchak and
Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I have seen how my people were being oppressed in Egypt, and I have heard of their cry. I am going to bring them out of Egypt to good land, flowering with milk and honey. Therefore I will send you to Pharaoh, so you can lead the descendants of Israel out of Egypt. Moshe went to Pharaoh and demanded that he let the people go. But Pharaoh said, "Who is this Jehovah, that I should let Israel go? I do not know Jehovah, and I won't let the people go."
And now we come to the most important part of our sacrifice. Our Seder.
And Charlie, part of them coming, Chris has studied this. She's going to be helping us with the song, The 10 Plagues of Egypt.
And everyone must participate.
Everybody has to help Larry.
Everybody's
Well, okay.
understood the.
Boy, oh, you got off easy, lady.
Everybody understands the flow of the 12 days of Christmas. And this is loosely taken from that. But,
This is the 10 plagues.
as you sing this, when we come to the very last plague, the Nile River flowing with blood, you need to dip your finger in the wine and put it up on the plate.
Right here.
And so that when we're done, you'll have 10 spots on
You
your
can borrow
plate.
my plate, Matthew.
I'm gonna borrow your plate.
Everybody clear? Yeah, it's very important that when we start that everybody's glass of wine, grape juice is full or is plentiful.
You might want to say about, all caps on the 5th plague.
Oh, yeah.
5 golden rings. That's
Yay! All right.
Are,
In good Methodist tradition. I'm proud of you.
All right.
are we ready?
Yes.
On the
First plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me, the Nile River flowing with blood.
Splash!
That's not bad. Not bad. Everybody get a drink of wine. Put it in.
Jewish drinking games.
Are we ready?
Okay.
Second plague. On
The second plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me, herds of croaking frogs and the Nile River flowing with blood.
Splash!
Very good. Very good.
I'm
Let's do plague 3.
Oh, well.
Are we ready?
On the
Third plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me, swarms of biting lice, herds of croaking frogs, and the Nile River flowing with blood.
Splash!
All right. We've had a little stretch here. Get another
Yeah,
drink of wine.
Getting a little parched.
Yeah. You gotta have a clear voice.
Some of us have got to drive home too.
No policeman, I wasn't drinking.
Well, you all heard about this, didn't you? The priest that got pulled over by the cop said, "Officer, I've just had water tonight." The officer said, "Oh, I distinctly smell wine in this car." He said, "Daggone it, he did it again."
Water in
Egypt, Jehovah gave to me, flies as thick as darkness, swarms of biting lice, herds of croaking frogs, and the Nile River flowing with blood. Splash! On the 5th plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me, disease on all livestock. Flies as thick as darkness, swarms of biting lice, herds of croaking frogs, and the Nile River flowing with blood. Splash!
Not bad. Not bad.
Halfway home, people.
Get another drink of wine.
By this time, the wizards of Egypt and stuff like that were shaken.
On the
6th plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me, boils upon their faces, disease on abiding lights, herds of croaking frogs, and the Nile River flowing with blood. Splash!
Beautiful. Get another drink of wine.
I don't think there's anything beautiful about what we've been reading, Charlie.
Oh, let's hear it.
It's the voices.
Everybody ready? Are you ready, Larry?
Larry's always ready.
All right. On the
Seventh plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me. Hail on land and beast, boils upon their faces, the disease of all livestock. Flies as thick as darkness, swarms of biting lice, herds of croaking frogs, and the Nile River flowing with blood. Splash!
Excellent. Excellent. We're at
8.
8.
And we can eat locusts.
On the 8th
Plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me. Locusts eating gardens, hail on land and beast, boils upon their faces, the disease of all livestock. Flies as thick as darkness, swarms of biting lice, herds of croaking frogs, and the Nile River flowing with blood. Splash!
All right, get another drink of wine.
It's exhausting.
It is. It's a hard
It takes a
song.
lot of work. You gotta keep a good, clear voice here. Everybody ready? On the ninth
Plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me. Days of deepening darkness, locusts eating gardens, hail on land and beast, boils upon their
Hey,
faces,
Matthew.
disease on all livestock. Flies as thick as darkness, swarms of biting lice, herds of croaking frogs, and the Nile River flowing with blood. Splash!
All right, everybody wet their whistle for the last go round.
Man,
This is a long one.
It'll take some time. We mess up, we'll have to start over.
Oh,
Everybody ready? On
The 10th plague of Egypt, Jehovah gave to me. Firstborn a dying, days of deepening darkness, locusts eating gardens, hail on land and beast, boils upon their faces,
hey,
the
Matthew.
disease on all livestock. Flies as thick as darkness, herds of biting lice, herds of croaking frogs, and the Nile River flowing with blood. Splash!
Hey, that's what. Amen. Hey, that's one of the best renditions ever. Way to go.
Guys, we got a tour. We're going on a
That
tour.
was good. Oh, boy.
We are touring on this one. All right, Michelle.
Michael Root, he made that
Oh,
up.
my. Okay.
Here to take the next three.
Sure. The last plague, death, came upon all the firstborn of Egypt. To keep the firstborn of Israel safe, Jehovah told them that each family should choose a lamb. The lamb must be perfect, a male in its first year, and none of its bones were to be broken. Each family slaughtered the lamb at dusk and smeared the lamb's blood on their doorway. Jehovah said, I will pass through the land of Egypt and kill all the firstborn, both men and animals, and I will execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt. The blood will serve as a sign, marking the houses where you are. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the death blow will not strike you.
No, Judy, would you take our next read, please?
The people had to prepare their meals quickly that night because they were getting ready to leave Egypt. They ate unleavened bread or matzah. Jehovah commanded that every year we eat only matzah and no leavened bread for 7 days, so each year we celebrate the feast of unleavened bread. That night Jehovah slew all the firstborn of the land, except those with the blood of the lamb upon the doorpost. Pharaoh then relented and let them go. So the people of Israel left Egypt and camped by the Red Sea. Pharaoh changed his mind and decided to pursue them, but Jehovah blocked his way with a pillar of fire. Jehovah opened up the Red Sea, and the children of Israel walked on dry ground. When the pillar of fire died, and Pharaoh pursued them through the sea closed up on him and his army. The children of Israel were free from Egypt at last.
Hallelujah.
He did not return back to Ann Baxter.
He did.
He did not. So,
That was Hollywood.
yes. Virginia, would you take us to the next one, please, and do the blessing for the wine?
Okay. Blessed are you, Jehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brought us out of Egypt.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. The next one is important. Has everyone signed their waiver? This is, when 7 years ago, I guess, or 8 years ago now, we first went down to Michael's and watched the Passover. We actually went down with Sean and Angie. We thought, well, we'll go to make sure they don't get dragged off somewhere or something, yeah.
Some strange teaching.
Except strange teachings. And he did this, and I initially thought, well, he's kind of sophomore, the way he's doing this. But when you ate through it and actually participated in it, you suddenly realize this is as practical of exercise about going through life as you can hope to come across. Because, you know, me being the big man in the group, I had to laden mine up good with the horseradish. And I don't know where Michael found that stuff, but it was... you know, there's only a time or two I've come close to getting it like his, and I hope tonight's one of them.
You didn't check it out.
But you load it up about halfway, like we showed here, with the horseradish, and then
Now,
you put the
it's
haroset on
not-
the back. Now, interestingly, the haroset will neutralize the pH of the horseradish once you get to it, and it actually gives a very sweet, appetizing taste. If you stop in the course of eating that horseradish, you will die. But take about an inch strip. Everybody get a strip of matzah. Take about an inch strip, the full length of the matzah, and put about half of it with matzah and about half of it with haroset.
Now, about half is not an arbitrary thing.
But this is really this is a really good object lesson in enduring
That's about enough.
and kind of walking with God. That there are times we will be called
See what I'm going?
to.
See, I'm not wussing out. I'm going 2/3 to
I'm
third.
gonna wuss out.
I'm going 2/3 to third.
We need it down there.
Because Charlie embarrassed me at Charlotte. Miss Matthews.
Yeah, right.
I took
Oh,
one
Connie.
time.
That's,
I'll put it on the whole
I'm
thing.
not gonna be sorry.
I'll leave the kerosene on.
no, you need to get the haroset.
There's
I have no respect for that. That's
Now,
awesome.
my 80-year-old aunt
I'm
2
I'm
years
ready.
ago that was here with
This
us
is mine right
didn't
here.
understand
I'm
what the
on- see?
horseradish was and layer
See,
here and
okay,
stuff like she
I'm
thought
on-
was ranch dip.
Great.
Oh, my.
And then you want to put the whole rest, because this is what's gonna keep your
Something's
mouth
got enough
from
carrots,
burning
I mean, bitter herbs on here.
We don't have her set up this end either. Oh, you, have you
There
got?
should be hair set all.
Here's the haroset.
Here's the,
Here's the,
There it is.
Yeah.
Is
If
there
we
more-
run out, I have more horror set. in
look,
the
some
next
fell
one.
off.
is there more rotund?
Okay, let your mom and dad have some now.
No, they can't have it.
He likes it.
You like hot wings like your brother, don't
That blazing.
Now,
you? It's in the,
Desert heat,
Yeah.
maybe.
it runs in the family.
whatever you do, what everybody does, make sure you chew the horseradish. Don't just breathe it in.
Well, it's not as hot as you
Thank
think.
you, sir.
No, it isn't, I just got a little speck of it.
I mean, you know,
Not bad.
It's not that bad.
trust me.
The
I've got a
tradition,
hold of some
What,
of those.
what
As soon as you.
what you feel tonight, you will feel later
I
too.
mean,
Are we ready
tradition,
to eat it, or does
Jewish
it have to be?
All right.
Jewish
Wait a Jen's got some here.
Anybody get some more?
Jewish tradition, you know, has it that the bitter herbs are supposed to be bitter, that so bitter that they bring tears to your eyes.
Yeah.
Everybody ready?
Okay, ready.
Take a piece of matzah.
Okay,
One,
here you wait a
2, 3.
Oh, God. Oh,
Okay,
It's not really hot.
Oh.
It's hot in your nose.
Too much?
You want some more?
No.
It wasn't hot enough.
All right, anybody up for another piece?
Let's go for it.
Hand me that.
Greg,
ready.
take a piece of matzo, please. You can break it
my
off. Dave.
lesson.
Oh, yeah, I think I told
They
you
just
that
have
one
problems.
year. That's not bad.
Tears of slavery.
A couple of years ago, I haven't done it too much since. I put a little speckle
We
in.
had some one time when we was doing the Seder.
I got one of Rude's 2 years ago, and I took one little tiny bit and it cleaned out my sinuses entirely.
Well, when Michael starts off the count, and he always tells everybody, and may God have mercy.
Oh,
Well, that was a
Wait a minute, Charlie. You ain't wussing out. I'm getting old.
Larry's
Yeah,
at.
Ain't wussing, buddy.
If it's any good, you
Larry,
gotta
don't be
clean it
soft.
right away.
Ain't wussing, buddy.
Yeah,
Here we go.
I got a little bit of my sinuses
Whoop.
pressed up.
Hater.
You're busting
You
through.
gotta have like one bite of the good stuff,
All right, Larry.
Wait a minute.
otherwise you're
Patience.
soft.
Man, but Charlie went wild on that one.
Oh, look at that.
What do you mean? Look at that.
All right, are we ready?
1, 2, 3, go.
You gotta go fast.
What are you doing, Larry? Larry, where are you going?
We lost Larry again.
He's passed out somewhere.
Now, Sean always
Larry,
had a horse
is that
radish.
thing you said about your tie?
Sean always had a horse
Larry,
radish.
come back in here and let us watch
Oh,
you die.
Okay, man, come
Pretty close.
Oh, no, you were darker than that at Roots.
I thought he was gonna die.
Trying, Larry.
Oh, man.
He was actually speechless.
Yeah, this.
More wine.
More wine.
The thing is, the way y'all do it, because the way most Seders are, you just eat the horseradish by itself the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a power set by itself,
Yeah.
and then you put the two together.
Oh,
But you always take just a little cracker, a little shred. You don't do the whole.
Right.
yeah. All right.
It doesn't look like it doesn't look like a frat house painting. Looks like.
Hey, Charlie, Virginia wants to read.
Virginia's already read.
Oh,
Well,
yeah?
she didn't read hardly anything.
Blessing.
That's all she.
I guess Greg's turn.
Yeah. Let's do that. Greg, you care to take that next one? They're in the middle of page 8.
Okay. Jehovah gave the children of Israel righteous laws to live by. They eventually settled in the land promised to the sons of Abraham, which came to be known as the land of Israel. One of the laws Moses was given was that the people were to keep the Passover of Pesach. The Passover, like all of Yah's appointed time, is a shadow picture of good things to come.
Hallelujah.
And Greg, would you care to take our next section?
And you gotta get your. Okay.
Jehovah knew his people would never truly be free while under bondage of sin and death. 1,500 years later, a child was born, the only begotten son of Jehovah himself. His name was Yeshua, which means Jehovah Yoshia, or Jehovah saves, and he is the only person who lived a sinless life. That means that he kept every one of Jehovah's laws perfectly. The prophet named Yochanan laid eyes on him and proclaimed, "Behold, the Lamb of Jehovah, who takes away the sins of the world." Jehovah had again provided the Lamb himself.
And as we know, the most beautiful thing about this is Jehovah. He is the conjunctive form of the word to be.
in Hebrew. Hayah, Hoveh, Hihiyah. He who was and is to come. And therefore Yeshua is the conjunction of he who was and is to come saves. Chris, would you care to take our next read, if you wouldn't mind? They're on page 9.
Like the Passover lamb, he was perfect. Just as a male lamb was a substitute for the firstborn of Israel, so Yeshua prepared himself as a substitute payment for all of humankind.
Everybody needs to get some matzah again.
Share some with us. He was a pig eater.
We need matzah down here.
Pass the matzah.
Just keep that one down there.
Yeah, you have the Methodist portion of it out there.
Okay. Go ahead to read.
Blessed are you, Jehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. And he said, take, eat. This represents my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Likewise, he blessed the wine. Blessed are you, Jehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. And Yeshua said, take, drink. This represents my blood shed for you, that you may have your sins forgiven.
And what's interesting about the matzah, when he says that this is my body, although there's some dispute about whether or not actually they ate matzah at the Last Supper, but if you look at this during our Passover as a representation of his body, you will note that the matzah is striped. It looks bruised, and if you hold it up, you will see it's pierced. It is a picture of his body.
When you think about the Passover, it's not just history. It's not even just prophecy that has been fulfilled. It is eschatology, or future prophecy of that which will come to. And the picture of Yeshua hanging on the cross with the blood applied before the doorposts with the Lamb is the complete picture of that prophecy. And I love the teaching. I know it was Perry Stone was the first one that ever introduced me to the teaching, but who was it that passed over when they saw the blood upon the door? It was Yah. It was his judgment that passed over and came upon him. They had to have the blood upon the door. Everybody universally was going to get the same punishment. What are we facing? We are facing that eternal punishment of death, hell, of an ultimate destruction in this world unless we have the blood of the Lamb applied upon the doorposts of our lives. And how do we have that? We have to bear it out. We have to live it out. It's not a perfect picture. And so I think that's the beautiful thing that I see in it, in keeping it in remembrance. It's like one of the lessons we've been learning with Leviticus. Each of these Hebrew books of the Torah have a specific Hebrew name that actually gives a much better description of what they are than what we understand. And for example, the word in Leviticus that I think is just a beautiful picture of end times to come as well is Vayikra, which literally is the reversing vav, meaning in Hebrew they have present tense and past tense with multiple things. With the reversing vav, it means and he called, meaning and God called. A true, honest reading of it without calling it a reversing vav would be what, AJ? He will call, he will call, in the imperfect future tense. So not only and he called, but he will call again. And it's written right there in the labels of our books.
And it's so much in his nature, because He was, he is,
Is,
and he will be.
be.
So he did call, he is calling, and he will call
Amen.
each of us.
So these are not, I mean, the beautiful thing about Torah is there is nothing completely abrogated, done away with. It has just as valid future application as it does present, as it does past. And that's hard to wrap your head around when you first encounter that, but then when you start seeing the connections with everything, it's like, wait a minute, oh my gosh. Jen, do you have the next reading?
No, I think
Matthew does.
Matthew, that is right.
All right,
You can do it.
I believe in myself.
I don't see that written here, Matthew.
It ain't right, you too long.
Yeah, I have.
And Jehovah said, cursed be the pens, for they have failed. Oh, wrong part. That was the Pittsburgh edition.
The next day, at the same time the Passover lambs were being prepared for slaughter, Yeshua was sentenced to die on the cross. Like the lambs, he had committed no crime. Some of the people were given the choice to set Yeshua free or set free a criminal. The people chose to set the criminal free. Yeshua was scourged. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
and a crown of thorns was forced onto his head. He was nailed to a cross. In the time when the very last Passover lamb was being sacrificed, he cried, "It is finished." And his spirit left his body.
And of course, at the same time, the high priest was yelling,
It is
finished.
Finished.
Yeah, that's the last Passover lamb.
Everything that Yeshua called out on the cross was something that the high priest would say in the course of offering the lambs, even from "I thirst." And when Pontius Pilate declared, "I find no fault in him," that's what the high priest would have to proclaim to the Paschal lamb. And Alan brought this up while we're waiting on this to load the other day, who said, you know, and I didn't realize this, but how important it was, who was to select the Passover lamb for each house? It was the worshiper, was to go out and find the perfect lamb in each of their folds and each of their flocks. Hence the significance of Yeshua's triumphal entry into the city, where they accepted and effectively nominated him, them the worshipers, as the Passover lamb.
That was neat how that came down. There was some high priests that felt some, you know, like
There it is. The Roman soldiers were eager for him to die before Passover started, so they decided to break his legs to speed the process. Since he was hanging on the cross, if they broke his legs, he wouldn't be able to breathe, he would suffocate. However, before they did so, they realized he was already dead. Thus the picture of the bones of the Passover lamb to remain unbroken was fulfilled. They pierced his side and outpoured blood and water. Thus was fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. He was pierced for our transgressions.
Crucified.
Crushed
For our iniquities.
our iniquities. The chastisement
Our peace.
of our peace was upon, and I can't hardly read because down here it's dark, upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. Yeshua's body was laid in the new tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. His body laid there as Jonah was in the belly of the great fish 3 days and 3 nights. Yeshua rose on the third day to become the first fruits of the resurrection. With this, he had defeated death, hell, and the grave, not only for himself, but for us all. He was the Messiah.
Amen.
And when we talk about Passover, we talk about Moses' stand before Pharaoh. That is the first picture and the first thing that we see with it. But just as we mentioned earlier, Exodus Exodus is not a book of history alone, and it's not a book of fulfilled prophecy alone. It's a book of future prophecy. It is our futures that we're writing. Moses wasn't the last person to stand, person that Yah would ask to go before a king to save his people. He wasn't the last person that Yah would ask to stand before the most powerful person in the world, seemingly to the outside, to do that. The theme's revisited multiple times in the Bible. We see the theme revisited again, for example, in Esther. When Esther, even as Yeshua, we also see goes to intercede for us before the throne of his Father in Romans 8:34. What does it mean to stand before Pharaoh? When Moses stood before Pharaoh, he wasn't standing before a mere man. He was standing before all of Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world at the time. Moses sought the freedom of an unjustly enslaved people. When Esther stood before the king, she wasn't just standing in front of her husband. She was standing before the king of Persia, before all the protocol, before all the history, before all the tradition that went before that. She sought to save a people that were unjustly condemned to die by men. When Yeshua intercedes for us, on the other hand, he isn't just standing before his Father, he is standing between us and the judgment of the King of the universe. Worse yet, unlike the Jewish people who were unjustly enslaved or were unjustly condemned in the book of Esther, he stands between us and the accusations of heaven, of Satan in the heavenly court. And still worse for us, we are guilty. We stand righteously condemned by our own self-imposed bondages to sin. Thus, Yeshua's only defense for us is his own blood upon the ark of the covenant in heaven and the scars in his hand. Defending an undefendable people, he took the penalty of our guilt so that he could justly stand for us and withstand Satan. How many of us can stand in this world for his law? Nathan had to stand before David to tell him he was guilty in the eyes of Yehovah in 2 Samuel 12. Jeremiah had to stand against the wicked king and priests of his own land. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood before the king in Daniel 3:16-18. Also in chapter 6 of the book of Daniel, we find Daniel standing in the lion's den. Finally, Paul, who stood unjustly accused of violating the Torah by the Jews and now Christians alike for the last 2,000 years, was sent to Caesar to make his appeal. Standing can be a lonely and thankless place. Moses was rewarded for his stand by constant ridicule, rebellion, dissent, and slander from the very people he gave the last 40 years of his life leading. Paul was forsaken by nearly everyone at the end of his life. Yeshua was betrayed, mocked, and widely scorned by the masses on the day of his crucifixion. Even his disciples fled him. Yet only a few days before, the masses had cheered his entry into town. How quickly they turned on him. Remember, nobody knows you when you're down and out, even if you're king of the world to come. The approval of men is a dangerous and worthless means for us to gauge our ability to stand. In fact, it is Satan who offers the kingdoms of the present world and their glory to those who would bow a knee to him. We're not better than our master. We should expect a similar fate and know that the master is with us until the end. Men will not stay with you. People, even those closest to you, will knock you off the very pedestal they previously put you upon and declare you've missed your so-called purpose in life. To stand, we must have enough word in our mayod, and that's a Hebrew word for our very. Every ounce in the book, when it says you shall love your God with all your heart, your soul, your being, one of the last words there is mayod. But we must have enough word in us to know that such a day will come, and to rejoice in knowing we have been counted worthy to be so tried. We must know to to encourage ourselves in Yehovah, just like David did at times when all the odds were stacked against him. And this is not an easy thing, I say. This is not a perfect thing at all. Who shall separate us from the love of Yeshua? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword, as it is written, for your sake we are being killed all the day long. We are regarded as sheep to the slaughter, Romans 8:35-36. How do we learn to stand? If we were in the military, we would be trained so that our instinctive reactions are replaced by trained reactions. I took a self-defense class. It was actually the Krav Maga system of self-defense actually developed during the Nazi persecutions in Germany and Europe. And the teacher told us it takes 1,500 repetitions of something to make it self-nature, to make it internal and second nature. How many of us have read the Bible through 1,500 times? Gail, perhaps. In an afternoon. But that's the level of where it's at. I remember taking a self-defense class when I was at the Academy for the Bureau of Prisons. And we went for 3 weeks solid doing all the moves nice and slow and textbook, and we learned all the things to escape the chokeholds and do this. And then they had businessmen and people in the community who were local actors that like to dress up in the brown uniforms like prisoners, and they give them the rubber knives and the guns and all that stuff. And they would put us in there at real time when something would break bad in a situation. And we ran like 4-year-old girls when it first happened. Because that's your first nature. It wasn't built into our muscle memory. And so each of us as believers, there's a certain amount of understanding that we're probably going to get buffeted by stuff, and we're not going to make the book on the first go around. But, I think one of the tools that we've been given, and he's been given to us for this generation who he knew was going to face that, is the blood of Yeshua that we've just heard. That when we fall on our faces, when we mess up, when we do these things, we've got it to come back to. And that's a tool that he's provided for us. He will be with us to the end. When he says he will be with us to the end, that's that promise that the blood of Yeshua is going to cover us.
It doesn't promise us an easy end, though.
It doesn't promise us an easy end. It doesn't promise us success. It doesn't promise an esoteric purpose that will be rich if we fulfill it. But it promises he will be with us to the end, that we can always hit our knees. We can always come back to him. And just like this Harosah, just like this Maror, when we get to the other side of that and we think we've died and we look awful, and we come out the other side, there will be a sweetness on the other side, and he'll be there waiting for us. And we can't forget that. And as these days come on, I think we're seeing more and more of that. It comes, it ebbs, it flows at different times. Different themes come and things seem to get better. And we think it's okay and we forget Yah. And those are the dangerous points. Ephesians 6:10-18 describes the picture of the armor of God. And this is so easy to academically read and so impossible to get second nature. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in strength and in his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and authorities, and against the cosmic powers over the priests and darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day. And having done all to stand, stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth. That holds it all together for us, right in the middle. And having to put on the breastplate of righteousness, our most vulnerable spot, we have to cover with a righteousness. And to put on the shoes on our feet, having put on readiness given by the gospel of peace. And in all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one. For the past 10 years, I have on a credenza at work a Bible, and I have a stack of papers and emails. And for me, this is an act that I do in faith, and I don't everybody's got to find their thing. It was actually something Jen taught me years ago. She actually taught me if something bothers you to fold it up, put it in your Bible, and give it to God symbolically. Well, I don't have a big enough Bible to put all the things that bother me. So I've got a stack of paper that's the size of a Gutenberg Bible with a small Bible on top. And it's what I call my altar. Something comes along, an email comes along, something comes along that aggravates me. 90% of what I do for a living is receive emails that annoy me. I'll print a copy of it out and I'll put it under the Word and I give it to God. And I can honestly say, as a testimony, God has never failed me in the 12 years I've been doing that. And some pretty impossible situations, by the way, have gone in that stack. And every so often I'll shred it and I'll take it out and I'll burn it. Like a burnt offering. It's not a sacrifice, it's not a temple thing, but that's my secret worship, shall we say, that I have that sits right in the middle of my office. And I think we all have to find some place where we do something like that, where we can symbolically give it to God. Because we're humans and we want to handle everything in our own power, and we want to validate ourselves with our own ability to do things. I mean, our egos are unreal. And a lot of what we end up doing is we end up actually throwing off signals as to where our buttons are at, where we can be pushed, and where things can go. You know, I think that's one of the things that Christian movies and Hollywood and everything has done. They've set a trap for us. We're not careful. You know, we are sorely deceived if we believe standing will be like a 2-hour movie with a happy ending. You know, Scripture tells us to offer ourselves as a living sacrifice, meaning we've got to finish. Finishing well doesn't mean the triumphal music and we walk down this lengthy aisle with Princess Leia standing at the end with the polished droids at the end of it because we've just blown the Death Star up. It's not going to happen necessarily like that. Maybe for some people it will happen like that. There may be some that it does, and praise God for them. But the world is full of how many people who finished well that didn't. Eleazar in 4th Maccabees, who rather than even feigning to eat pork at Hanukkah at the behest of the Greeks, was killed, even though they were begging him, don't make us do this to you, just pretend. And he said, no, it would not be a good finish and it would not be well for me. So they killed him brutally. Did he finish well? He finished better that way than to have compromised his faith and left with a damaged testimony. And how many other martyrs? Where do we get the word witness as is used in the New Testament? Does anybody know what its root is? Martus.
Yeah, martus.
Which is where we get the word.
It's the word witness.
Martyr,
Yeah.
also. But literally the word martyr simply means a living, or a witness, a true witness. One of the first messages I ever gave at Sar Shalom was the cross-examination of a Christian witness. Anybody can give direct testimony. Direct testimony is nice and easy. Your lawyers prepped you for it. You're gotten ready that you know what questions you're going to be asked, and you give your story and you lay it out there. But the problem is we live in a legal society for which the adversary has the right to cross-examine every one of us when we give a testimony. And how many people in our days of going to church, we get up and we testify about how good God is and what all He's done for us, and then the very next week all hell breaks loose on that testimony, on the things that we talked about, and we don't look a thing like what we just praised God for in front of everybody. The enemy got his opportunity to cross-examine us, to ask us those questions. And don't be surprised when those things happen. But that's the danger I think we have at this idea that we're going to stand. We're going to be spiritual Rambo. And we're just going to come out here and it doesn't look and it doesn't work that way.
In the Aleppo Codex, the Shema is written, and there are 2 letters in that phrase that are written larger than the others. The last letter of the first word is an ayin, and the last letter of the last word is a dalet. The Shema is Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad. But the last letter of the first word and the last letter of the last word, Ayin and Dalet, those letters are written large. And when you put those two letters together, they make the word Edah, which is witness.
Yeshua told us to take up our cross and follow him. He didn't do that for no reason. Yeshua didn't speak vain words. He didn't speak sarcastically or cynically. Can we stand when everything in our lives is unraveling to the point that even those near to us believe we're just crazy, we got character flaws, something's wrong with us? You know, if I'm Satan, why am I going to send somebody over to Bill and say, renounce Jesus or I'll kill you? Bill's been conditioned for that. Bill's got a muscle memory for that. But what am I going to do? You know, maybe I'm going to send a kid that's going to start creating a whole lot of problems and a lot of things on the side. They're going to wear him down. And then things at work are going to pop up over here. And he's going to get wore down. And then maybe even in his own weakness, he'll crumble and he'll cry out. And everybody looking, poor Bill, he just broke. I knew he was weak in the faith. Something wrong with, I mean, even those closest to him that would normally prop him up. That's how Satan attacks us in this world. That's how things happen to us in this world. Don't be surprised. Any of us are conditioned to die for Jesus. We just can't live for him day in and day out. And Satan knows that. So don't think that that's not how persecution is going to go. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, we have been conditioned to think that the only way we're going to suffer persecution for the sake of Yeshua is when the Muslims kick down our door and they threaten to behead us if we don't denounce Yeshua and become Muslim. And certainly that happens. But Satan's looking at us going, these people got a whole lot of stuff in their life. They got nice houses. They got big incomes. They got fancy cars. They got kids they want to see get through college and do these things. And they got all this, and they got this idea of this Western life. And Satan looks at Yeshua and says, like he said to Job, you put a hedge around their lives. Take away their idol of the American dream, and let's see what they do. Let's see where they go. See how many of them will follow you then. 92% of them aren't even following you when they say they are, so let's test the other 8%. If you're getting tested, let me submit this. If you're getting tested, and if you're getting things coming at you, you are at least getting counted worthy by Satan to be somebody that he's got to test. 92% statistically are extras on the set and don't have a thing to worry about. Those are George Barnes statistics. They go back to literally Charles Grandison Finney. Billy Graham himself even said we have failed to disciple. And so that's, that is, it sounds harsh, but that's it. Now the reality is, if we cry out in distress, if we lose it, if we scream, have we lost our salvation? Certainly, Satan's going to want to come at us and say that. He's going to want to convince us, you've just lost it. You're no good. You missed these things. It's going to be the number one game played at us in this stand. That's what Pharaoh's going to be coming back at us to get us to say, I know not Jehovah. Because he didn't give me an easier path than he gave Moses, and he didn't give me an easier path than he gave Yeshua. And he didn't give me, he's expecting to hold me to the same standards of all the greats in the Bible. When he knows he should just coddle me and let me come on in to heaven at a rapture after a 5-course Sunday brunch. It just, but I mean, and believe me, we all want it. We have to do well, though. I think the problem, as I said, we all want to be spiritual Rambo. We who, by the way, never existed. Sylvester Stallone probably couldn't hold up an M50. Certainly shouldn't shoot at 50 caliber. So let's get realistic with Hollywood versus real warriors. You want to talk about a tough person? Give me Corey ten Boom any day over some Hollywood actor pretending to be Rambo. There is your warrior. Any of the Ten Boom family, but any of those that have never, if you've never seen the movie Hiding Place, your first assignment is to go out and watch it. Every single member of her family was killed by the Nazis, and she was a Christian in the Netherlands. Many will say, the thing that I think we've got to remember, we're dealing with in this stand that we're making, this isn't a one-man show. This is trench warfare. And anybody that's familiar with trench warfare and the conditions of World War I know that the conditions of the trench were probably less desirable than being shot and killed by the enemy. They were horrible. They were squalid, they were disease-filled, they were mud-filled. You never knew when they were going to get invaded. You never knew really whether you should shoot the guy next to you or wait for the one to come over the top. You didn't, what kind of leader was going to blow the whistle? What was he going to lead you out to? Would you happen to be at the next Gallipoli? Those were brutal, horrible conditions, the likes of which nobody has ever seen before or since practically. When the whistle blows, are we going to have enough faith to leap over the top after enduring in the trench? And let me assure you, anybody in those trenches, those guys were heroes when they come back. When they were over there living in those trenches, there were nights they cried themselves like babies. They messed their pants. They messed in the trenches. They bled. It was horrible. Some of them killed themselves to get out of the trenches. Some of them ran like madmen over the top just to get away, only to be slaughtered by a German Maxim gun. And the same thing was happening to the Germans on the other side. That's what holding the line in a trench looks like. That's what standing, even as believers amongst us, can do. And the best that we can be called to do at times is to make our brother or our sister next to us' experience in the trench as possibly good as we could hope to be made. How do we do that? We have to study His Word. That is the real truth. We have to obey His Word. For by doing that, we are righteous. No, it's not a righteousness and a salvation by works at all. There's nothing that we can do that will earn our salvation. But the reality is with our discipleship, and if we believe what we say we believe in our faith, as James said, you say you got faith, show me your works. What are your works? Simply obeying Torah would be a good start. Does that mean you've got to go out and sacrifice lambs and do all the 613 laws? Most people don't know. There's not even really 613 laws, and even if you added all of those up, 400 and some are simply practice and procedure in the temple that doesn't exist. So most of them are codified in our criminal laws today anyway. Of the other 200. Our salvation, when we have done, we have to acknowledge that Yeshua is our Messiah. He is. And when we have done all of this, we must do it again and again and again. Who can separate us from Yeshua's love? Only ourselves. Are we ready to stand before the pharaohs of this world? What if Yah sent you today? Could you go? Not knowing if you would live or you would die. There are many stories as the Jewish people were brought and executed in the Holocaust. And the last thing that they would do in praise to Yah was stand and sing Shema, acknowledging their God, even in the face of death. If you imagine being stripped naked, every shred of dignity taken from you, shaved, your beard shaved, your hair shaved, mixed genders in this room, and the next thing they're going to do is drop the gas in on you. Would you have the fortitude to shout the Shema?
And when you're shouting the Shema in front of the German soldiers, knowing that they don't care whether they kill you or not, you're less than that my little dog running around here with them. You don't know when you start to say the Shema, they're going to blow your head off. You don't know when you start to say the Shema, even if you've got the courage to stand up and even like the Hebrew.
This rabbi was known as Mosheinu, our Moshe, our Moses. He was the leading rabbi of Eastern Europe before the Holocaust. And just to give you an idea of who we're talking about, there are thousands, tens of thousands of rabbis. This was a rabbi that any Jew in Europe would know who this rabbi was. It really is just imagine this image. In a Christian context, replace the name Moshe Friedman with Billy Graham. This is the Billy Graham of Judaism of that time. He's known to everyone as this leading figure, as this really uniting figure. He was a figure who united all the different factions of Judaism in love and as much as they could possibly get together. And there he is, stripped naked, about to be marched into a gas chamber. Rabbi Moshe undressed along with everyone else. Didn't matter who he was a Jew. He then addressed the Oberscharführer, that's the Nazi commander. Holding on to the lapel of his coat, he spoke to him in German. Do not think you will succeed in destroying the Jewish people. The Jewish people will live forever. The innocent blood you have spilled will be demanded with you. You will speak. He spoke with great emotion and great strength. Then when he had finished, he put on his hat. This is the hat showing him to be a rabbi, the rabbi hat. And in great excitement, called out, Shema Yisrael! Hear, O Israel! And all the Jews faithfully responded with him, Shema Yisrael! Out of a sense of profound faith, which had surrounded them in all the last moments of their lives. It was a moment of supreme elevation. Michael, this is a Sonderkommando knowing he's going to be killed in the wee hours of the morning when no one's around. He has a stolen pen and a smuggled pad of paper, and he's writing this down so the generations to come will know what happened in those last moments. He says it was a moment of supreme elevation such as may be encountered but once in a lifetime, proving the eternal nature of Jewish spiritual resistance. Michael, here is the page in the diary of Le Blancfuss that was uncovered from Auschwitz. You can see the words twice, Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael. There was a rabbi after the war who described his experience where he was approached by another rabbi who said, I know I'm going to be killed. What blessing do I make just before I die? And he told him the blessing to make. And it's, blessed art thou, Lord, King of the universe, who sanctified us with his commandments, commanding us to love the awesome and honorable name of the one who is, and the one who was, and the one who future will be. To the last words and the breath of the dying Jew as he's being murdered, for no other reason that he's God's chosen people, for no other reason that he is a Jew in covenant with the creator of the universe, is praising the name of the one who was, is, and who will be, of that name, Yehovah.
Your children, he knows. We know God can deliver us, but we also know many times we don't get delivered. Can we stand? Can we stand knowing we may not be delivered?
And when we don't stand, when we get knocked over, and I'm going to submit, we're going to get knocked over from time. We're going to stumble. What does Proverbs say a righteous man does when he falls?
Gets up.
Gets back up. That's an active duty on the part of the righteous. Your act of righteousness when you stumble is to get back up. Take a knee. Let Yehovah be the judge. Don't let Satan be the judge and say you're out because you stumbled. Let Yehovah do that, and let Yeshua be the Savior. And apply to him, petition to him. No matter how many times you get up, you get down. I don't know how many times, at different times in my life, I look and I say, I like who I was a whole lot better before I ever got back involved in church. And I realize that's just the enemy talking, that's my flesh talking, that's a lot of things talking, and I have to get on my knee and I have to get it and say, Yeshua, forgive me. God, take me in. Doesn't excuse what I do, doesn't say it's not a stumble. But we're going to stumble. I don't set out to stumble. I don't intend to stumble when I stumble. But what hubris I would have if I truly think I can walk out here without falling, or that I could walk out here without even just trying to hang on to Yeshua. There's no way. But we're not promised an easy path. And it's with this song we will close. last little 3 lines, please. Really one line.
Yeah.
Right, we need to raise our glasses though.
Yes.
Raise our glasses.
So when I was in Jerusalem last year, I asked the lady who was keeping the desk at the hotel, because she was obviously very Jewish and it was very close to Passover. I said, "We're in Jerusalem right now." I said, when you end your Passover service, do you end it with next year in Jerusalem? And she said, "Yes, we do." And I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "Because we don't control Jerusalem. We don't have a temple. It's not ours." And so, let us all raise our glasses in hope that next year we will be in Jerusalem. Yashana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim.
Next year in Jerusalem.
Shabbat Shalom.
And there is some wonderful dessert